Hi, good evening, and a warm welcome to all of you to this grand finale of Season 2 of PSAI Talk Show. I can see that many of you have logged in. Good evening, Saurav, Janardhanan, Sharad, Dr. Alka, Brigadier Sushil Basin, Yabijan, Deepak Khemani, all who are watching live, welcome to this special show where we have a very special guest this evening. Before I get on to her, of course, I'm Ramaprasad Sreenivassan, your host for the evening. I'm the immediate past president of the PSAI Chennai Chapter. And you all know that PSAI comes up with different kind of programs to develop the speaker community, the members. And one such program is PSAI Talk Show. And this is the finale of the Season 2, and Season 3 will follow soon. And PSAI takes a lot of efforts to develop their community, the speakers, their technical skills, their ability to develop themselves, network with the 16 other associations which are associated with Global Speaker Federation, and so that the speakers can establish themselves as authority and specialize in their niche and eventually become a great paid invited speaker. So without wasting much time, I'm happy and honored to introduce the guest of today's evening, none other than our past president, Nina John. Let me introduce Nina John. Nina John is a coach for CXOs for public speaking and life skills. She is an author who has authored a book called Navigating Corporate Seas. If you haven't read it, please grab a copy immediately. Your communication is likely to improve immediately. And she is a charter member of Professional Speakers Association of India and the past president of the Chennai Chapter in 2021-22. She is a founder member and president of the former Women's Entrepreneurs Association of Madras, WAM, a forum for aspiring entrepreneurs. She is a recipient of the JRD Tata Mentor to the first prize-winning Entrepreneur National Award of the Decade from 1992 to 2002 by BYST India, and presented by our Prime Minister of India, then Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, in the presence of His Royal Highness Prince Charles of Wales on 30th October 2003. So I'm really happy to invite the special guest of the evening, Nina John, to this talk show. And I'm so glad to see you here, going to share your wisdom on words can change your world. So to start with, Nina, can you share with us your journey so far as a professional and how you got into this world of PSAI?
Thank you so much, Ram, and thank you to PSAI for this wonderful opportunity. As you said, PSAI comes out with so many different innovative programs, and it's a pleasure to be a part of all these programs, conceptualizing, directing, and making sure that all our members get a chance to be consummate professionals and their niche area. As far as professional speaking is concerned, I think I have traveled the journey which many of us have. I started out teaching slash lecturing in management schools. Then I drifted into training, became a facilitator, and now I'm a coach. So basically, I think that's the journey most people have, and I'm very happy to be here as a professional speaker because I think all the other, my skills as trainer, facilitator, coach came in handy to become a professional speaker. So excited to be here.
Wonderful, Nina. I know you're not just a professional speaker; you're a passionate grandmother as well, and and you really like seafood. That's what I understood. So, for the
Well,
audience sake,
it's
whenever you
not
see,
by seafood. Please spell it correctly. It's not CEA. It's SEE. Whatever food I see, I love. So yes, I'm a
wonderful,
seafood
wonderful to
lover.
know that. Okay, Nina, this is my first question to you. You are an authority on language. I've seen you in complete command when you address the audience. So, what, according to you, should be the typical language of leaders these days?
See, leaders today have a very, very big problem in the sense we are living in so much of a VUCA world. We do not know what is there for us in store tomorrow. We cannot use the tools and resources that we had yesterday. We have things like artificial intelligence or the IoT or all of these things which also change the way leaders are doing it. I found one example which I really like was that of Mark Zuckerberg, who had to to lay off 11,000 employees. And he wrote this fantastic email to his employees and his speech. There's a 2.5 minute speech in which he said, "This is my fault. I made wrong decisions at the wrong time, and I am so sorry to have to let you go." And I think that's one of the that epitomizes what a leader should be as far as I'm concerned. Because he had authority, he took the accountability and the responsibility, and that is how leaders build up integrity, credibility in the workplace. So being able to say that yes, I am the boss, I made a mistake, and I apologize, all very strong powerful words from a leader.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think leaders of today has to show a lot of empathy and lead with love and care rather than being bossy and being arrogant. And that's a great example what you have shared with us. Where the leader completely took the responsibility and he showed the empathy. Listen, I didn't want to let you go, but I had to. There's an element of empathy there, and that's very important here. Great, great example, Nina. Now, we live in a professional environment with multicultural, multi ethnicity, and varied genders. And we should be extremely careful in choosing our words when we communicate to the environment. So, can you highlight to us on how do we go about what kind of words we should not use or we should use when you have a no multiple varied, especially with gender sensitivity in place?
Yes, one of the catchwords or rather catchphrases that's going around is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think it starts with something very simple at the workplace where you have what I would call casual sexism. And it happens even when we have our summits and conferences and all that. A lady comes on stage and immediately she's introduced as a beautiful lady. Now this is probably an HR professional or a technical professional who's at the top of her career and has amazing skills, and to refer to her as just a beautiful woman is demeaning, dis. So I think one of the things people need to understand is how you treat everyone with respect and courtesy. If you have a multinational environment, you must be careful about cultural norms. Now, in India, we're very happy to say sir, ma'am for everybody and anyone that we come across. But the Americans are very much like call me Ron, and you don't need to worry about anything else. So we have to be careful how we address people, clients, all of those things. So that is one thing I would say right in the beginning. And of course, the other thing is since we are in a Zoom world, for want of a better word, most of our meetings are across continents. We have to observe the courtesies of how do we speak when we have a conference and listen carefully to what the others have to say. So that I think is also very, very important as far as speaking is concerned. In a physical meeting, uh, there is no rule that the women must pour out the coffee or do all of those things. So a lot of it is just casual sexism. You take it for granted if there's a woman, she has to pour out the coffee or things like that. And and the other thing is, if you say this is not being fair, then immediately somebody said, "Oh, you're a feminazi," and then these are all the terms that are coming up, and you have to be careful because feminism is not male bashing; it's standing up for equal rights. So that's how it is. Yes, I'm going to put on
So,
my glasses.
is there any caution you want to give to our audience about what words not to use, especially when you have gender sensitivity or anything? I do agree that in India, or especially the southern part of India, or even by and large, we use sir, which is a element of sir and madam. Okay, so that is a element of respect built in already. But is now that does saying sir or madam bring you close to the other person or still maintain a distance compared to telling your name?
I think it depends on the situation. So therefore, what you have is, I always say, especially when it's a client or somebody in a business corporate setting, stick to the formalities first. The other person must give you permission so that when I meet you for the first time, I will say to Srinivas, sir, and then get on with the other things. But if you say, call me Ram, and then we get on from there, then it's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, so you need to seek the permission to start with.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, okay, got it.
And you can
So
make life easier for the other person by saying, call me Ram right from the beginning.
yeah, because with the evolving culture and changing culture, the sir, madam culture is sort of gone with the younger generation. We are more comfortable calling by first name, especially in the IT environment with more and more IT people coming in. Feel more comfortable. Bosses are okay being called by the first name. And so, does it make any sort of difference in terms of respect, or can it be misconstrued as disrespectful, calling you by the name, say, without asking, seeking permission?
That really depends because what is seen as respect in one culture may not be seen as respect in the other culture. Okay, so in places of worship, you will find some religions insist on people covering their heads, and some they say uncover your head. So in exactly the same way, culture-wise, the same thing happens. So the tone also makes a lot of difference. So you can have any amount of please, thank you, and sorry. But I know whenever I said, I'm sorry, sir, my boss would be upset because he knew something was coming that he didn't like. So
Yeah,
the tone is, very, very important.
yeah, tone and body language as well, because you have to sort of emote with your words, right?
Yes. Give
Yeah,
equal respect with your voice, your tone, your body language, and the words that you use.
excellent.
And that
So,
applies to audiences also. So I'm very surprised that at a particular, this was a conference of administrative assistants in, All India Administrative associates. So the keynote speaker said, I don't know why you're calling yourself administrative associates. When I was there, they're called secretaries. I'm still going to call you secretaries. Now, you can't go on stage and say something like that to your audience. You have to respect your audience. And if you have something like that to say it off stage privately to somebody else, but do not come on stage as a keynote speaker and say things like this. Respect your audience.
Okay. Very important. And your words, the choice of words completely matter. Not only your words, your emotion and body language goes with that. Yeah, right.
Yes.
So, in today's parlance, mere speaking for leaders doesn't work. You need to sort of be a great storyteller. So, I know most of the leaders today want to develop that skill of storytelling, and I think you have been an exponent of storytelling right from beginning. So, can you enlighten us about how do we go about creating a story and developing a story, and what should be the structure, and with a possibly an example, it will really help our audience and also understand why story is important and how do we go about developing and delivering.
Absolutely. So if you look at advertising as a whole, each brand tries to tell you a story and tries to build your, draw you in as a brand ambassador or as a consumer user or whatever, for by using, snippets and little kind of anecdotes and stuff. If you are a corporate speaker and you want to, I see the audience also makes a difference. So if you have a chief executive officer who's trying to inspire his new joinees, one of the best stories he can have is about his own beginnings and how he started the organization or how he grew in the organization, because a personal connect is always something that resonates with any audience. So you can have any number of made up stories, you can take parallels from mythology, from any other kind of thing, but you also have to ensure that the audience connects. That's the most important thing. So your stories can be anecdotes about what happened in the office, how somebody pulled somebody had, when it was really short of cash even for the payroll, and then they went somewhere and they got the money from there, and how the whole company was saved because of that. Or how people worked through I'm sure there are hundreds of stories about how people worked through the pandemic and literally 24/7 made sure that factories continued, hospitals, all of these. There are amazing stories over there. So use those kind of stories to create a connect. That makes a lot of difference. And again, depending on your audience, you use the language, you use the tonality, you use kind of delivery that will appeal to them. So you can have maybe one language, or you can use two or three different languages. It really depends on the audience.
So when I think most of them don't realize the importance of story to start with, because they take it as a matter of fact and present more facts than stories. So is there any framework you have which you can share with the audience? Like, okay, this is how we actually go about constructing the story with the facts and then deliver it. So does it have any structure to it at all?
Definitely, I think always you have. I mean, stories are the oldest form of communication for humankind, right? From cave dwellers who sat around a fire and talked about the lion that almost attacked them, or the elephant that got away, and we've been embroidering stories for generations. So stories are very, very much a part of human DNA. So yes, stories are great, and you'll find that when you have stories that connect, there's always the basic structure framework is the same: the opening, the body, and the conclusion. How do you start your story? You have to talk about, oh my, if it was a cave dweller, oh my god, do you know what happened to me today when we went hunting? This is what there I was hunting the jackal, and that tiger attacked me, or all of that kind of thing. And then you know you're, if you're telling the story yourself, you're very often the hero in the story. So there should be maybe some kind of conflict. There may be some kind of a climax, and you bring it to a conclusion and say, "This is what happened." And will you draw lessons from that? Yes. Whenever you have stories, all our epics, Mahabharata, Rama, and all of them are stories, one after the other. What are the lessons you draw from those? Are they something that we can use today? Can we adapt those stories? All of that makes a difference. So, adapt your stories and use contemporary language. Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, okay. So everything is a story, and you can create a story from your own life. Be authentic. That's what you clearly told.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
nothing inspires like your own story, your journey toward, from where you started and where you came about. Yeah, there are quite a few inspiring stories around us, but
Yes.
not everyone is endowed with the skill to tell a story in an
Right.
engaging way. So is there, before I shift to the topic, is there any specific tips you want to give for you to be a great storyteller?
One is how relevant is the story to the audience?
Okay.
Why have you picked this story? You can have the story of the hare and the tortoise, and talk about how different companies, like for example, when you had Nirma and Surf. you know Nirma at one time overtook Surf in terms of sales. And when you change the playing ground, for example, ICICI, when they established ATMs, they had the first mover advantage, because they were establishing ATMs all over India. None of the other banks had it. But when you go into, I'm sure all of you may have heard the story of the hare and the tortoise, and how they decided first to compete, then they decided to collaborate, and then this thing of a co-opetition. So that is when, for example, when you have ICICI having the advantage of having the first mover advantage, and then you go into co-opetition, which means all the banks say that our ATMs are accessible to all consumers.
Mm,
Suddenly, everyone benefits.
all right.
So when you do that, and you bring a new impact to a new twist to the old stories, then they resonate and they connect.
Yeah. So, and stories, of course, has a great impact on people, and it also, like the story of ATM, how you start off initiating and then you collaborate, and the greater benefit is much, much better. So today, you can go to any ATM and draw your money, and it's so convenient for us. So
Yes,
anyway.
yes,
So you also, Nina, observe that the trends are changing very, very fast. Like we talked about artificial intelligence, and today, if anything wants to be known, even introducing people, you go to Chat GPT and try to get a extract as a reference. So my question to you is, what are the latest buzzwords we need to be familiar with as speakers?
one is, of course, Chat GPT. So, should we do it or should we not do it? And of course, throughout the pandemic, there was the new normal, which is now like died a natural death. Nobody talks, because we're back to normal before pre-COVID normal. So that is there. All of these things, AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, the Internet of Things, cyber security, and the very threats that we are having with deep fakes. So basically, what I'm saying is, especially if you are a thought leader, if you're trying to establish a space over there, you should be knowing what are all the trends. You should be talking about the trends of the future, not what happened earlier. So even when you use your examples, I say use examples, when you have a younger audience. Talking about Sachin Tendulkar will resonate with one part of the audience. But now I think you probably need to talk about his son, or you need to talk about Yash, Suryanshi, Yash, all of the newer people, Virat Kohli, all of those. So have references that people can understand, and if you're having a global audience, it has to be global references. Because one very simple thing, when you have currency and you're talking about figures, statistics, you don't say lakhs and crores because that's a very Indian thing to say.
Mm.
You use millions and billions, and you make sure that your audience can understand what you are saying and what are the references we have. So film stars, celebrities, unless they're universal, don't use them for your examples.
Okay, so basically, what you're saying, you need to be conscious of the generation of the audience, and do
Yes.
not talk about Kapil Dev and Sunil Gavaskar, and where you cannot connect. Especially
Yes.
the current generation. So they are with probably the Arjun Tendulkar or Surya Kumar Yadav's kind of people. Even Virat Kohli and Dhoni has become the earlier
Exactly.
generation.
Old
Prime
hat.
Minister. Yeah. So I still thought 2000 was just around the corner. I didn't realize 23 years have gone since then. That's how the world is moving so fast because of the information explosion, I would say, because of the internet.
Yeah, and one more thing, for example, we are so used to Diwali and Holi, and the youngsters are celebrating Halloween and Valentine's Day. So, are you connected with your audience? Right?
Understood. Agreed.
How do you do that?
So
Yeah.
you have had several occasions to address people. At the same time, you have been a part of audience as well. So I want you to share with us one of the most memorable, impactful occasion as a part of an audience, when you are a part of an audience. And that's a part one. And part two, I want you to share with us, like, as a speaker, what was the most fulfilling moment for you when you address somebody, and why? These two parts. So first part is as an audience, how did you felt impacted by somebody's speech or something? And part two, as a speaker, how did you create an impact in your entire journey till now? So if you can share with us.
I'll do that. So, when
Yeah.
I was a faculty, we were visiting faculty at a management college, we got this opportunity to attend seminar on the future, right? So the audience consisted of one faculty member and one student from all across Chennai. And there was this person who was a chemistry professor from I think IIT or whatever, and his speech was the most forgettable speech I have ever heard. But he was followed by one gentleman who was talking about the future. He did not have a scrap of paper, he did not have a PowerPoint, he did not have anything, but he was talking about what is going to happen in the future with, what are the social implications of certain medical things, for example. So he spoke about artificial insemination. Now, that was a topic at that time nobody had even heard of, and he was talking about the ethical dilemmas when you have a surrogate mother, or you have artificial insemination or whatever, and before the baby is born, the parents divorce. What happens to the child? What can the court do about it? What does the father do about it? What does the mother do about it? What does the surrogate mother do about it? Believe me, I can quote half that speech even today because it was so well researched. And I can see it happening now. The sociological implications of medical technology advancing, all of those. I mean, we've already got, because of we have female feticide because we are able to detect the gender of the baby. So that is technology feeding into cultural norms, right? So what happens in every field? We have advances. We've got location tracking to tell you where you went or whatever. I don't want anybody else to know whether I went to the bakery or whether I went to the grocery store the last week. You know, so that if it stays on my phone, it's fine. But what happens when it is misused? So when we're talking about artificial intelligence, these are the ethical things that are going to come up. And for your second question, Again, many years
Before
ago, I
you,
had
before you get on to the second question, do you remember this gentleman who addressed you? Do you
yes,
remember him?
I can
Okay,
still see him in my mind's eye on the stage, absolutely assured. And believe me, pin drop silence while that talk was going on, half an hour to 45 minutes.
okay,
Amazing range of genuine cases that
okay,
happened and that he knew of. And it really, the same dilemmas are happening now. The
okay,
same dilemmas are happening now. What is happening in this Internet of Things? What if you have a chip, embedded in yourself, and your corporate is your boss or the management is monitoring your sugar levels and whether you've had a thing. Why are so many people, so many corporate youngsters, dropping dead at the gym because they have to, the pressure to keep up a physical fitness thing along with your mental health, along with everything. These are the things that are happening. Everything that is happening will depend on, see, whatever we do, there are implications and there are consequences. You
absolutely.
can medically, medical digitization, you can now track every patient and what's happening. What happens if you mix up records? What happens if you mix up babies? What happens if you mix up different things? What happens in a world where the evil guys are sequencing the DNA to produce super babies and stuff and genomes? What happens then? So ethical dilemmas will continue and it will happen. So
Okay. So that's good. So, which means the topic he chose and the way he delivered and the authentic way he was sharing information, all these things made a clear impact on you so that you are able to remember even today.
yeah, and I'd also like you to remember the fact that the audience consisted of 50% faculty and 50% students,
Ah,
final year students, but the language he spoke, the simplicity of the words that he used, everyone could understand what he was saying, and he did not mystify the subject with unnecessary jargon or any of those things. That's audience connect. And
wonderful.
you should know your subject well enough to use the simplest language possible for the common denominator in your audience. That's what's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Reena. So, your second part as a speaker.
As a speaker, all right. So I had done a workshop on personal branding, right? And something like 6 months later, I happened to be in the same city, and one girl came twirling up to me. She's got a skirt and blouse, and she's twirling that, and she's very happy with herself, and said, "Do you remember me?" And I was like, "Not very sure." So she said, "When you did that workshop on personal branding, you spoke about how I should dress as a professional and what I should do." The next day, I went wardrobe shopping, and this is the effect 2 months from after that, and 6 months from now, and I've had a makeover because of that. I mean, that's impact for you. When she's really thought about it, she's internalized it, and then she's gone into this. So that's one of my proud moments.
Wonderful. Yeah, any change you bring about through your talk, which impacts a life and for the better, I think that's a great moment to remember. And more we do it, uh, more we are better off. So, I'm moving on to the sort of personal questions for the audience. So, what is your favorite dish?
Well, there are two things. One, I see whatever food I love. Two, I love it more if I haven't had to cook it myself. So two criteria for favorite foods.
Okay, so you don't like your own food, or you don't
I hate
like
my own
what you
cooking.
eat?
I can do a decent job of the cooking, but I hate my own cooking.
Okay. Now coming to a slightly serious question, who is your favorite author, and what do you like about him?
I have lots of books. I remember in school I used to love Georgette here, and I think she's one of the best writers that you have. Agatha Christie. I used to love all the mystery thrillers and things in the world. There's a particular sociologist called Gail Sheehy who's written a series of books called Passages, New Passages, things like that. And what
Mhm.
she was talking about sociological trends, and this book is about 40, 50 years old now,
Mhm.
is happening today. It's about, the change in society, what happens, and, like your Alvin Toffler's Future Trends.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
are books that have really predicted the future. You can see one of the things was the rise of the women manager, right? The rise of xenophobia, which is happening across all the world, the rise of weaponization and armies and conflict. So many of these things are there, and how society has evolved. Now, again, like we were saying, of unintended consequences, we are all living longer. So what happens? I would say most of us, that is Ravi and very much many of the audience, will be what we call a sandwich generation. We have our parents on one side, they're getting older and we have to look after them. We have children who are adults, but they may not be behaving like adults in many ways. Some haven't even moved out of their parents' houses. So we are sandwiched between these. That's one of the unintended consequences of a long life. And
Yes.
how do you deal with that? Because everywhere uh, we are talking about how do we do that, right?
Right.
And how do we deal with that? Because let me quote my mother-in-law. She said, I educated my children. I love the fact that they're doing so well. They're all well placed abroad. I love all that. But when I'm here alone in the house and nobody is there, I miss my children.
Mm.
And that's a social impact for all of us. For all of us.
Excellent. So you talked about the author. Now, next one is more relevant. What is that one book that had maximum impact on you as a reader?
I don't think there's any one book as such. It was more the book of life than any particular author that actually did that. So I think that's how it is.
Right.
I learned
For
more.
example, for me, Alchemist was a
Okay,
revelation.
okay.
When you read through the book, it has such a profound message in the form of a story, and it's about life. So I said, how somebody could write a book like this?
Yeah,
So that kind of a impact. I just wanted to see if you had any specific. Hey, this is the thing. And I used to read novels of Jeffrey Archer, who has his own style of you know reaching out. So just wanted to
yeah, for me,
understand
I've been
your.
a voracious reader right from the beginning. So for me, every single book makes a lot of difference, and I just love reading all the time. So unfortunately, it's come down now with thanks to Facebook and other things. But yes, I still do read. Yeah.
Of course, with so much distraction in the form of mobile media and other things, reading as such has come down quite a bit. So, do you think, Nina, reading is a very important habit to have for you to be a good speaker?
I love using acronyms during my sessions, and one of those that I use is WWW, right? Which is read whatever you can, read whenever you can, read wherever you can. And I tell people you don't necessarily have to read books. Even when you're traveling, you read the hoardings, you read the sometimes they are a source of great amusement. But read, just keep reading. You're sitting in a dentist's room, just sit and read that. And even newspapers, the more you read in terms of newspapers, people will not they don't understand the importance of reading newspapers. And I keep saying, if you want to grow in the professional ladder, you have to read. You cannot wait until you're a country head or any of those things to start reading. See, today, like your IAS officers who are generalists and then put into different places, a CEO cannot afford to be a specialist. He has to know what is finance, marketing, people management. He must know all of these things. You cannot do that unless you read.
Right.
And you have to start reading when you're in your 30s, or at least when you're in some position, without saying that I'm too busy to read. You will need that information when you are a leader. It does not work otherwise.
Okay. So because with the YouTube videos and audible kind of a thing, it's actually taking you away from reading for acquiring knowledge. That's the reason why I said how important it is for you to read. So I think your answer is
Yeah,
clear.
not only knowledge, language,
Yeah.
simple act of better words, better impact. What I was saying, my tagline is change your words, change your world. I always use the example of when you're traveling in the countryside, and there's a little dhaba, and one little boy will or in any cycle puncture shop, there'll be a little boy who will help out and stuff like that. The minute that boy starts listening to the customers and picking up a little English and things like even now, when I go to the provision shop and I give these guys a tips, they're all turning around and saying, "Thank you, ma'am." They're all from Bihar or Northeast or whatever, but they've come to this big city of Chennai. And as that language ability grows, your world expands. See, language is both a bridge and a barrier. You can connect with people, and you can, cut them off by saying, I don't know the language. But the more languages you know, the more you connect with people across the world. And globally, you need a higher level of language than just what you learnt in, school or college or whatever. So just there are so many of our youngsters who learn C++, Java, OOPS, God knows what else. Sit and concentrate on your English as well. It will help you.
I know, I understand.
Yeah.
So they're very good in connecting with machines, but not with
Yes.
people. Yeah,
So the people connect is less and less. So that's another unintended consequence.
I completely agree. So coming to your family, who is your most family favorite family member? Other than your husband, of course.
Of course. Well, that leaves only my dog. So definitely yes, my dog would be there. Especially when my girls were here, I used to say my dog is the most obedient daughter in the house. So
You still have them at home?
not my daughters. I have the dog.
Yeah, dogs only. I asked about the dogs. So they give you they are your emotional
Yeah, I mean, I
handle.
love dogs, but I don't think I have this kind of great emotional connection to that extent of feeding the
Okay.
dog myself or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, dogs are a great companion to have. You don't need to
Yes,
communicate, but they being there next to you itself is a great
exactly.
emotional leveler. I, having grown with a dog for almost 14 years, I can share it confidently. So, if you had to describe yourself in one word, what would that be?
I don't think I can describe myself in one word, so I'll leave it to the audience. Let them fill in whatever words they want in the comments. You'll get it
Yes,
from them
audience, if you have to describe Nina in one
in one
word,
word.
what would that be? Let's have a quick response from your side. And also, I
Response.
invite audience to uh, ask any question you want to Nina. She'll be happy to
Yeah, I think
answer.
we
We
have
have
one
another
question.
8 minutes to go. Yeah.
Do you want to read that from Sanjay Kaluri? Can you see it?
Okay. He has already asked a question. I'm not able to see.
Okay, it says, I'm an aspiring trainer. What suggestions can you give me to become a good trainer?
Please.
Do you want to take that? Or do you want me to take it?
No, no, no. You have to do that. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think this is exactly where more and more reading comes in, because you need to understand your subject. You need to understand how do you facilitate, and how do you run a training program, because each group that you meet will have totally different objectives. The or corporate will have different objectives, so you need to understand what exactly are you doing. So one, try and specialize. So behavioral skills, all of these are a good place to start, depending on what your basic college or whatever has been. And if possible, if you can tag on to a company and do either programs for them or with them to start off with, then you can become a better trainer. But the more experience you get in the training field would be one of the best things to have.
Okay, Sanjay, I hope your answer
Yeah,
is
or if there's
there.
any other.
So, specialist, you need to be a specialist, and you can go through. There are various ways of getting across your message to the audience. You need to learn those methods, and yes, as a trainer, one of the most important thing is you being understood by the your trainees, as well as you understanding the trainees before starting the training. So both are equally important. I think that's the tip for the time being.
Yeah, I would
Any
also like to. Yeah, sorry. No,
any
I was
other?
saying if you want to be a trainer, the first thing you need is a sharing attitude, a caring attitude that I want people to learn. So it's very different from being a lecturer, and it gives you a lot more satisfaction. At least that's the way I found it. And you can truly be an instrument of transformation if you really focus on your work and what you can do with it. Yeah, back to you, Ram. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Nina, for that. It has been a great chat so far. A lot of learnings in terms of how you should be, what language to use and what not language, the language to avoid, and the words to avoid, and being sensitive about the social issues, ethical. All we have covered quite a bit. Now, as a final message to the audience, to sum up all these things, what would you like to say, especially with relevant to today's topic? The words can change your world.
I think we need to realize that words are the building blocks for speakers. Without words, we cannot operate. That is the currency of our life. And when we have, again, to extend that metaphor, you can't use American currency in India and vice versa. So use the right language for the right audience. Make sure you are tuned into your audience's needs. Make sure you're flexible enough to change if required. Be courteous, be kind, be effective, and make sure you know your subject and have that passion for sharing. The more of a passion you have for sharing, the less you have to worry about whether you've got the grammar and the spelling or all of those things. Share with your heart, and you'll be one of the best trainers around. Back to you.
Wonderful, Nina. The message is loud and clear. Share and care to start with. Rest of the things will fall in place. Of course, you need to be your specialist for you to share and care. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with the PSAA Talk Show. I'm sure the audience were greatly benefited by the nuggets which you shared with us. And till the next time, we will be again waiting for one of the great show from your side. And thank you, all the audience, for being with us in this talk show. And I'm sure you got greatly benefited from the wisdom Nina shared with us regarding the words that can change your world. So, signing off with this grand finale of the PSA Talk Show. See you next time soon. Sometime the PSA Talk Show will continue very soon. You will get more information in the group. Be alert, be aware, and thank you so much. And good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.